What are the 10 physician archetypes?
So the 10 physician archetypes. This is a video and commentary that I've been wanting to do for a while. It's something that's been brewing in my head, and I'm just getting around to doing it. So first and foremost, disclaimer, this is sort of tongue-in-cheek. There's some seriousness to it, but I'm also partially joking about these archetypes. There's 10 physician archetypes that I'm going to go over, and different physicians I have found fit one or more of these archetypes. And sometimes they change between different archetypes. And so it's not an exact science, but some of these archetypes might resonate with you. It's generally a spectrum, right? Starting with the rent seeker over here and the saint over here. So let's start with the rent seeker. So the rent seeker physician archetype, it's something I've seen, I think probably many of you have seen. It's the physician who focuses on how to squeeze more juice out of the healthcare lemon. They concentrate less on improving the clinical care or the speed or the costs. They figure out how to bill maximally, how to maximally bill CPT codes, how to maximally leverage the healthcare payment system. Mind you, none of this is illegal, right? This is perfectly legal. It's a rent-seeking business strategy. They figure out, well, let's do an OBL on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and ACSC on Tuesday, Thursday, and let's change the C-arm over here on these days. And that's fine, right? Nothing wrong with that. You know, who am I to judge? But the rent seeker is constantly thinking about how to maximize revenue and squeeze more juice out of the healthcare lemon. Perfectly legal, perfectly legitimate. Not our philosophy, but that's not to say it's wrong. And not our philosophy, PhD specialist. The rent seeker, most of his resources are spent figuring out how to get more reimbursement. Okay, that's the first physician archetype. Number two is the politician slash schmoozer. Of course, there's often overlap between politician slash schmoozer and rent seeker and others, but the politician slash schmoozer is an interesting archetype, one I've encountered myself. He's a politician. He shakes hands, he kisses babies, he says the right things, he talks to the right people, he curries favor, he makes friends, he builds relationships. This is a skill. This is a skill, and it's a valuable one. Like a lot of politicians, sometimes what he says and what he does or what he thinks are not in sync. But that's how he advances his career and climbs the healthcare ladder to success and fortune by being a politician and schmoozing. Again, I'm not judging if that's right or wrong or good or bad, but I have seen this archetype before. They're very, very good at that. Clinically, maybe they're okay. Maybe they're bad. Maybe they're good. I don't know. But they're very good at the politician schmoozing side of things. Number three, the VA guy. The VA guy is a very interesting guy. VAs are, an interesting place to work. Like most government agencies, they are inefficient. Efficiency is not in their vernacular. Speed, improving quality, not necessarily in their vernacular. They're largely rent-seeking organizations, right? I remember I was working with a VA once. I wanted to overhaul one of their departments, which could have been easily done operationally, save them a lot of money, increase the throughput and speed and everything. And the person I was dealing with, she said, wait a second, you're going to make it go faster and I'm going to save $1 million in the department at the end of the year? I said, absolutely. And I can personally guarantee it. And she said, oh, absolutely. And I don't want to do that. I want to spend all the money we have. So next year we can lobby for more money. If we don't spend it all, then they're going to cut our budget for next year. And I sort of facepalm myself because this was a long time ago. I didn't understand that that's the way government organizations work. They want to spend as much money as possible. They don't want efficiency. They don't want savings because they can then lobby for more taxpayer dollars, which is a rent-seeking behavior. So the VA guy, the physician who works there, largely adopts the same mentality, whether they had it when they went there or they just get it later from being there. They don't want to work too much. They don't want to do too much volume. They don't want to make things more efficient because it's like whack-a-mole. They'll get whacked. Government agencies aren't the place to increase efficiency, throughput, and quality, to make things better, faster, and cheaper. It's exactly the opposite. Government facilities, whether it's VA, DMV, U.S. Postal Service, The name of the game there is status quo. So you had to rent seek and get more taxpayer dollars. So the VA guy, again, nothing wrong with this. I'm not passing judgment. They're generally rent seekers, and they're pretty decent politicians too. But the VA guy loves the VA because it's the status quo. Don't make too much noise. Don't do too much work. Clock in and clock out. Don't rock the boat, and you can have a pretty easy, decent, cushy career. That's the VA guy. That's the third archetype. The number fourth archetype is the academic, and God bless him. So, research, right? Research papers and citations. Never been something for me. But look, I understand the value of it. You got to push forward the field, whatever field you're in. And academics, most academics I've known are not really into the research and academic part, but they like the lifestyle of academia. And there's nothing wrong with that. Who am I to judge? It's a great lifestyle. Hours are good, no emergencies, residents and fellows do most of your work. The academic gets that, and there's nothing wrong with that. They do a little teaching. Okay, maybe publish or perish. Maybe they put their name on a paper once a year. Nothing wrong with that. That's the academic, and many people choose this lifestyle and this position, and that's okay. Nothing wrong with being an academic. Next archetype, the fifth archetype is the silver fox. The silver fox is an interesting one. This is generally an older statesman-like head of a group, whatever type of group, cardiologist, vascular surgeons, primary care, podiatry, you name it. The silver fox, older, distinguished gentleman, head of a group. He's got characteristics from many of the previous archetypes. He tends to be a politician and schmoozer. He's not going to be the head of a group without you being a politician and a schmoozer. There's some elements of rent seeking, right? Because generally by that stage, they're not doing that much real work. The junior associates are doing all the clinical work. They're doing as little as possible. Generally they're trying to figure out how to get more reimbursement. And the politician part, yeah, they wouldn't be in a directorship position in healthcare if they weren't politicians to some degree. So, my caution to any younger physicians watching this is be wary, right? Be wary. Sometimes what a silver fox says may not jive with what he actually thinks or what he'll actually do. I don't mean to be cynical, but I wish the world was all sunshine and puppy dogs, but it's not. So, and I'm not saying all silver foxes are like this, but 99.9% are. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not saying they're all like this, but a lot of them are. They wouldn't be heads of groups if they weren't politicians to some degree, if they weren't rent seekers to some degree. So just take anything they say with a grain of salt, right? If you think about it, silver foxes often act quite rationally. If they can get a junior associate, a fresh grad from fellowship or residency for, $300,000 or $350,000, whereas the partners in the group make much more because they get a share of the profits at the end of the year. And that junior partner has a 3-year partnership track. And at the end of 3 years, it's entirely at the latitude of the silver foxes in the group to decide whether to grant that junior associate partnership. Why would they do that and now share the profits with that junior associate, even if he's good? Because they know that rationally, it's rational. They'll be able to probably get another new residency fellowship grad at an associate pay for another 3 years. So I've seen this a lot, and it's unfortunate, but the bait and switch of the silver fox group head, they'll persuade junior associates to join for low wages, low salary, and string them along for 2-3 years and not give them partnership. It's unfortunate, but it does happen. Not all the time, but I would say most of the time. So silver fox is very typical sort of head of a group, statesman, with elements of both politician and schmoozer and rent seeker. The number 6 physician archetype is the job hopper. And these are often the young physicians who maybe fell victim, if you will, to the bait and switch of the silver fox in the groups that promise the world, you work hard, you take the call, you work 70 hours, you work weekends, you work holidays, but it'll pay off. 2-3 years, you're going to go to partnership and your pay's going to triple. Sometimes it doesn't end up that way. Sometimes it doesn't end up that way. I would say more times than not, it doesn't end up that way because of the reason I explained earlier. The silver foxes of the group have no incentive and certainly no requirement to make you partner and share, profit share with you. So the job hopper will, and this happens to everyone. It's happened to to me, it happens to many young physicians. Every 2 to 3 years, they'll change jobs. They'll find a job right out of training, maybe see some headhunter or recruiter, and they'll think it's perfect. The silver foxes of the group and the politicians say all the right things. And then this job hopper young physician works so hard for 2 or 3 years, does a tremendous amount of work, had tremendous RVUs, maybe added new service lines, improved things, and when time comes for partnership, they don't get it. They don't get it. So what do? They hop jobs. They find another job that promises similar or the same, and they go to that. And they're waiting for that big payday, that perfect group, and it doesn't happen. I can't tell you how many physicians I talked to that are now in their late 30s, early to mid 40s, and they've job hopped from 3 or 4 jobs, 2 to 3 years, with exactly this story. And it hasn't yet clicked, some of them, that things aren't always what they seem or what silver foxes or politicians tell you. Again, my point isn't to be cynical, for anybody to be cynical, but be a realist that unless there's a requirement contractually, oftentimes, and they don't have to make you partner, many times they won't, and it's no fault of your own. Don't beat yourself up. It's the nature of healthcare group dynamics and employment. That's the job hopper, and the job hopper, I really I can relate to them because I meet a lot of job hoppers, and they're good people. They want to work hard, they want to eat what they kill, and they've been unfortunately misled a little bit for one or more jobs. The next physician archetype is number 7, the hospital hero. This is great. So the hospital hero is basically like the Dr. McDreamy type, right? There are other intangible benefits of being a physician, not just money. What is it to be a physician? Money's important. Lifestyle's important. Satisfaction, right? Happiness that you're actually making a difference in patients' lives and improving their lives. But there's other things. People think about all these. What about the glory of being a physician, the hospital hero, the Dr. McDreamy, right? The nurses look up to you, the techs look up to you. You know all the physicians. You shake their hand. You high-five them on cases. That's cool. There's some value in that, right? So the hospital hero is a physician who really loves that. He really loves it. It's a community, right? When he's at the hospital, everybody knows him. Where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. Like, cheers. Everybody knows him. Everybody likes him. Shakes hands, meets people, dates beautiful women in the hospital, helps patients. Okay, so he works a lot, doesn't make that much money. That's okay. That's not everything in the world. So we have seen the hospital hero, and again, nothing wrong with that. He wants the glory. He wants to be Dr. McDreamy. Nothing wrong with that. Number 8, the idealist. Okay, the idealist. Most physicians, a lot of physicians when they're getting out of training are idealists. They think, look, I'm now trained. I want to work hard for a group. I'm going to help patients, make a difference, make a dent in the universe, like Steve Jobs said, and hopefully earn a lot of money and have a great lifestyle and just ride off into the sunset with my wife and kids and family. This is a great notion. And to be fair, some young physicians do hit this sort of perfect, obtain this perfect position right out of training. I've met a few, and they stay with them for life, 10, 20 years, and it's great. It worked out exactly like they'd hoped. Unfortunately, they are the exception, not the rule. I'd say maybe 1 out of 10, is like maybe 1 out of 15. Most, unfortunately, end up being victims of silver fox group heads and the bait and switch, and they end up being job hoppers for a few years. So again, my point isn't for everyone to come out of me. I'm not advocating that every physician come out of training being a cynic. I'm not a cynic, but you don't want to be too idealistic because it's a tough world out there, and the silver foxes and the politicians out there may take advantage of your idealism. So trust but verify. Look for that perfect job, but be careful. I wish you well. Too much idealism can backfire. And number 9 physician archetype, the pragmatist. This is the one that I think most closely relates to us and what we do at PAD Specialists. The pragmatist. He's interested in making a meaningful difference in patients' lives. Number 1. Number 2, having a good work-life balance and a wife and kids and hobbies and the gym and jiu-jitsu and tennis or whatever he does, sailing, scuba, and making good money. You sacrifice your 20, med school, residency, fellowship. You have hundreds of thousands of dollars of student debt, other friends from high school and college who didn't go into medicine. They're making lots of money by their early 30s and no debt. You're just basically getting out of school in a way, getting out of fellowship and residency. So you want these three things: meaningful difference in patients' lives, great lifestyle, and good money. You don't care about the hospital hero stuff, Dr. McDreamy. You don't care about being a politician or rent seeker. You don't want a job hop. You want these three pragmatic benefits. That's the pragmatist. I think that's the most logical approach. I'm a pragmatist, but I don't rule the universe. Who am I to say that there's other archetypes and adopting those roles is wrong? I will tell you this: if you're a pragmatist and you do PAD revascularization and you're very good from any specialty, vascular surgery, interventional cardiology, interventional radiology, you would like working with PAD specialists. That's what we're all about: pragmatism, meaningful difference in patients' lives, revascularizing those arteries, healing their wounds, alleviating their pain. Excellent lifestyle, no call, no weekends, no holidays, nada, banker's hours. And finally, phenomenal pay. Phenomenal pay after a year. The first year pay is pretty generous. The second year pay, if they're good, is phenomenal. Low seven digits are easily obtainable. So the pragmatists, whether it's with us or with other physicians, they look for these things. They're not interested in the intangibles, the hospital hero, the rent seeking, the politics. They just want help patients, have a great lifestyle, and make as much money as possible, and live a happy life with their family and wife and kids. So that's the pragmatist. And finally, there's the number 10 is the saint. The saint is an interesting guy. The saint, I'll tell you, I tip my hat to him. You know, most of us in training, fellowship, residency, we want to help patients and save the world, and we watch ER and George Clooney and House MD, and we wanted to do that. But then later we realized when we get into the real world that a lot of it's not like that. It's sort of kind of mundane stuff, some scuts, long hours, maybe some work that's not so gratifying. And then as we start getting older and more experienced, most of us shift toward more of the pragmatist perspective. Even if we start with an idealistic perspective, we start shifting more toward a pragmatic, not a cynical, a pragmatic, idealist to pragmatist. However, I'll tell you, the saint, they work long hours in groups, in hospitals. They take calls. They do weekends. And they still, for the long term, really enjoy the thrill of hospital heroics, right? Heroic cases, heroic saves. They sort of live that ER George Clooney lifestyle with regard to the heroics and helping patients in a dramatic fashion, maybe in a dramatic manner, maybe in trauma settings, right? Saving their lives, taking their spleen out, embolizing their spleen, or embolizing their SMA, or doing other heroic things, doing heart transplants, arterial bypasses, STEMI treatments with thrombolysis. This is amazing, right? A lot of idealists come in and they get a lot of joy from that, but then that slowly sort of has some diminishing returns on that, and they become pragmatists. Because in order to be that saint and really help patients in a heroic, dramatic manner, by definition, you're not going to have a great lifestyle because you're going to be on call a lot. You're going to have to come in on holidays, weekends, nights. So believe it or not, there are still saints out there. I've seen it. Saints that could make a lot more money and have much better lifestyles doing something a more pragmatic job for the pragmatist, but they say, look, I'm willing to sacrifice. I can accept 60 hours a week versus 40. I can accept $300,000 less annual pay because that's how much I value, I guess, the dopamine hits of really heroic saving patients. And all I got to say is God bless them. I'm so glad we have saints because we need you guys. We really do, and I appreciate it. So 10 physician archetypes: rent seeker, politician / schmoozer, VA guy, academic, silver fox, job hopper, hospital hero, idealist, pragmatist, saint. Roughly along the spectrum. Again, this is meant to be somewhat tongue-in-cheek. Maybe you identify with some of these. Maybe you identify with a few. You'll probably transition between different ones throughout your career. Nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with any of these archetypes. I will tell you, if you're watching this, maybe you know about PAD specialists and what we do. If you're a pragmatist that values the three pragmatic aspects: meaningful difference in patients' lives, excellent lifestyle, phenomenal pay, and you're good at PAD, contact us. We'd love to get to know you and talk.